Welcome everyone, GM. Hope you're all having a great day. My name is Yasin, and we are kicking off the second workshop for the Fuel Hackathon this week, which is going to be on TypeScript and Rust SDK office hours. We've prepared a nice presentation with the Fuel team, and there's going to be the opportunity for you to ask questions regarding the things that you're building and get direct technical support from the team. As always, since this is live stream, you will have to post your questions within the questions section on the bottom right side, or use the chat section to share about the things that you're building, the issues that you're having, or just generally the questions that you're encountering with what you're planning to create. Let me quickly add our participants for today who will be running this workshop. Starting off with Dan, we're going to have Halil as well, and Ahmed on stage. Nice to see all of you active in chat. Hey, Dan.
Hey, guys.
So again, the structure of the workshop is going to be quite simple. Dan has a presentation ready for all of you, and you can follow along, ask any questions that you might have in chat, and then strictly specific building questions also post as well in chat, and then Ahmed and Halil will be able to help you out. Again, if there are not enough questions, they will all try and highlight some of the core issues, things that you might end up tackling along the way, things that you need to know. And last but not least, one thing for all of you, this section will be recorded. It is recorded, and we will make sure to share recording in the next 24 hours with you, both on the Discord as well as in the Hacker Pack. So anything that you might see, miss, or thing that you might think to re-experience again and see if you can delve into the knowledge better, you will be able to do so via the recording, which we will share tomorrow. Last thing to note, don't forget that this Sunday is going to be the idea submission deadline, and we will be expecting the ideas that you plan on developing over the next 2 weeks. So this is pretty much the best day for you to share more about what you're planning so that you can get direct guidance from the Fuel team. Then, without further ado, Dan, let's move on to the presentation. Feel free to say a few words. I'm really glad to have you all here on stage and looking forward to a great workshop.
Cool, thank you. I'll share my screen and kick off the presentation. Okay, can you see everything okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm Dan. I work primarily within the TypeScript SDK. I'm going to give a quick presentation on a tool that we provide called. So what is CreateFuels? So it's a command line tool for quick, really rapidly bootstrapping and prototyping applications. So if you've worked with something like Scaffolding, it's very similar, but for working within the Fuel ecosystem. So it's primarily aimed at people newer to the stack because it's like the use case, it implements program types that they're real simple. It's primarily aimed at getting up and running quickly. But to be honest, it's because of how quick it makes development. I actually use it quite a lot for local debugging and rapid prototyping. And if I've got a problem that I can't resolve inside a more complex application, it's good for moving it to CreateFuels and you can test something in isolation. I'm going to reference the docs quite a lot because everything I'm talking about here can be found within the TypeScript documentation. And we will run through CreateFuels, but it's all here, and also gives kind of a few examples of how you might extend it, and probably a bit more depth than I'll go into today. Cool. So how to use it, super simple. The syntax that you're very used to if you work in the kind of Node ecosystem. So yeah, pm CreateFuels, provide a package name of your choice. And then again, I'd recommend checking out the options in the docs because it gives you the full config options, but I'll be building under the default flags today. with PNPM. You may have noticed there's a template option. We've recently supported a Vite template that's now our default template actually, but we also support Next. We're super keen to hear about the other kinds of things people might want us to support, be it other front ends, maybe the back ends of the packet managers. Obviously right now we've just built with React to keep it super simple for us whilst we're finishing the tool, and then we can start extending it. So what's included? This is what's included if you run the command under the default setup. So you've got your Swave program types. It comes with a contract, predicate, and a script example. It comes with all your front-end infra. So in the default, that's React and Vite with routing, styling, linting, etc. It comes with out-of-the-box wallet integration. So that's via connectors. So straight away, you've got access to things like Fuel, BSafe, Solana wallets, or for local dev, you can get access to a burner wallet. So yeah, just makes your wallet integration really quick. We also provide a testing setup and local node support. So yeah, maybe we'll just have a quick look through those. So straight away, this is the Sway program types that we ship with CreateFuels. So this is a real simple storage contract with a counterexample read and write function. Real simple predicate example. So just takes a pin to verify the predicate, and a script that will just return some input. And like I said, these are simple use cases because what we're really trying to showcase is their integration with your application. Therefore, let's take a look at the front-end infrastructure it comes with. I won't go through each component page because I think that's going to use time, but I'd recommend running the command, have a look through. But this just shows how it will spin up the app, spin up all the files you need, and have it readily integrated with our program types. The wallet connectors that I mentioned as well, this is the root component, so we can see that everything is being served by our wallet connectors. The other thing I wanted to touch on quickly as well was testing setup, because obviously this provides a full kind of end-to-end development solution, but it's still really important to be able to test our contracts and test our program types in isolation. And we provide a way on how to do that. And one thing I want to give a quick shout out to is this launch test node function, which is perfect for working in a kind of a short-lived test environment. And what this will do is it will spin up inside your test case, it will spin up a node. You can deploy a contract to that node and test against it. So you don't have to be worried about collisions with a node you're already running or setting anything up for running your test. It can do all of that inside your test case. So that's a really helpful tool. Okay, I think that's everything, or more or less most of the things provided by Create. Now let's look at local development, how we can use CreateFuels to actually build apps locally. So obviously for that, we'll need to be running a local node that we can test our application and test our program types against. So CreateFuels comes with the Fuels dev command, which does a few things. So it's going to spin up a node based off of the Fuel core version that you've installed via Fuel app. It's going to build your program types, again, using the fork version you've installed via Fuel app. It's then going to deploy said contracts to your local node. It's also going to develop TypeScript types for all your program types, so you can use them in your front end. and it's also going to hot reload. So if you then make any changes to your program types, it's going to rebuild them and redeploy them to the local node. And then we've also got a dev command, which is, if you've worked with like Next or V or like what you're probably more used to, which is just your kind of front-end development server. So let's run both those things and check out what they're doing, and then we can interact with the app. Let's just have a quick look at what's happening here. Cool, so I've run Fuel dev. We've started the node using Fuel core. The port we've bound the node to. We can see it building sway programs. It's generated the types, that's typegen. And it's deployed our contracts. And then it's told us what those contract IDs are. I'm just going to quickly touch on the types that were generated. So these are factories that are generated by typegen that just make it really easy to interact with the contract. So if I go look here, we can see the contract ID that we got told we deployed down here. I'm passing that to the test contracts instance that was built by typegen. This class here, to easily spin up an instance of our contract that we can then go and start interacting with. So now we also need to, now we've run the node, we'll also run the front-end dev server so we can spin up the app and interact with it. Here's the front end, super simple, super bare bones, but the intention is just to have everything you'd need to work locally. So like I mentioned, all our wallets, for local dev, I just like a burner wallet so I can work with quickly. Top up my wallet, and I'm free to interact with the programs that I've written. So this is our count contract. We're reading on state change and that increment function. We've got the predicate example, which takes the pin to unlock the funds. Pin's 1337, give it an incorrect pin. Transaction fails. Pass the correct pin to validate the predicate. I love demos. No idea. Oh, sorry, I need to transfer money funds to my predicate. That's my bad, because the predicate has got funds to transfer back. I'm going to send some more just so it doesn't fail. And now I can, I'll show failing, because that's the wrong pin. Now correct pin. Predicate unlocked, wonderful. Got a little demo. And then last example, we'll show our scripts example, where this is just like we saw before, it just takes an input and echoes the output. So 1337 again, it returns that super simple program type. So like I said, it's just showing that full integration with your app. Great for local dev, but so you've developed your app, tested your app, now you want to ship your app. So we've also got the Fuels deploy command. I won't show a full deploy here, but I thought it might just be nice to touch on how you go about deploying. So everything goes through our Fuels config file here. So right now I'm pointing to my local node, point at testnet, also I'm on testnet, so I need to provide my private key, and I can just go ahead and run Fuels deploy, and then I'm going to deploy my contract to testnet. Fuel CLI. So obviously, everything I've been talking about has been within the realm of CreateFuels, which is like the templating engine. But everything you've been seeing, like generating the types, building on the fly, spinning up your local node, is predominantly powered by the Fuel CLI, so you don't need to have bootstrapped your project using CreateFuels. As long as you've got Fuels as a dependency in your application, you have access to these commands. So again, I'd recommend you can step through all of these in isolation in our documentation. The other thing I wanted to mention, we're actively, I know all you guys are building apps and things like that, and I think CreateFuels is a good way of just rapidly starting to work with something. But if you do happen to use it and you do have any feature requests, we're really keen to hear about it, because a lot of stuff with CreateFuels is in active dev right now. This is a little sneak peek of our reskinned and a few UX and DX improvements to CreateFuels. As I said, I think one thing a couple people were asking for was like that the front end, the styling received bare bones. That's not saying a lot of care. Well, always that fast about, but when you're shipping, we all know if it doesn't look nice, people don't use it. So this just gives a few opinions of how you may want to style your app and just gets you a bit close to production a little bit quicker. I believe, Finn, that is it. So I believe now we can move on to questions.
Hey everyone. As I mentioned briefly in chat just now, now will be a great opportunity for you all to basically share a bit about the things that you plan to build, the ideas that you've had, and maybe get some direct feedback from the devs on whether the ideas you have are viable, and as well as get some support on how to make the most out of it. I'm expecting a great question. That's all typing coming in. As a quick reminder for all of you, if again, the idea submission deadline is going to be on this Sunday. So we would be expecting to hear from all of you the things that you're planning to build, the stage of which you are. So I presume some of you have already started working on something, while others still yet to start. Please make sure to fill out the form that's been shared on the Discord before the end of Sunday. And we will then be in touch over the next week and try to connect you with the right people to get technical feedback, as well as provide you with any help that you might need. Hey, I'm new to blockchain and recently entered into the hackathons, how to think for a new project and how to build it. If you look into the hacker pack that we've shared, both on Discord and has been emailed to you, you will see there's a lot of documentation that's been shared from Fuel. There's a lot of great examples and some easy early steps that you can take. But Ahmed, maybe Halil, you can share a bit more on what will be a good place to start and some easy things people can tackle.
I don't have too many experiences with hackathons and the blockchain domain, but what Yasin already said, I assume you have some kind of target apps that you would like to build. The same is true for common blockchain apps that are built on other chains. So you could always tackle something like that because it doesn't already exist on Fuel. And then you can expand with your own sort of features or something Fuel specific. Especially with Fuel, you have the benefit of Predicates, for example, which is not something you will see across other EVM chains. So it enables you to avoid some stateful stuff inside your application. So that might be a benefit. So maybe just going with a common application and then avoiding some of that statelessness with the help of predicates would be a way to go. Just my 2 cents.
Perfect. I'm going to quickly share a link for all of you in chat, which is basically a quick link to the Hackapack, and it is from the sponsor section. If you look closely, you'll see there's a lot you can see within the resources about Fuel, learning about execution, checking on the blog, especially the documentation, and you can look into the GitHub from the team and see what the team's working on, as well as some things you can explore, see if there's anything you can fork, try and adjust, change, improve, and there's a lot you can learn about the ecosystem in general and create things you can engage with, such as the wallet as well as the Fuel bridge. So all of these links have been made available within Hackapack in the resource section. All of you that are curious, be sure to explore and let us know if you have any questions.
We do have, hopefully he won't mind calling him out, Guy here. He's another contributor to TypeScript SDK who I know actively participates in hackathons and has won a couple, I believe. I don't know, I know he wasn't going to jump on camera, but he might not mind speaking about his experiences. Don't worry, Di, you don't have to come on camera.
In the meantime, anything you guys want to highlight as something of importance, something that you might give as a heads up or pointers for everyone that is building?
There's quite a lot of things. I would prefer if they were to highlight what they're interested in most, just not to overwhelm them with topics that are uninteresting. In case some questions come up during the following days, there's always the forum. We try to answer as fast as possible. So anything related to the Rust SDK, TS SDK, infrastructure in general, there's a section for it on the forums, and you're probably going to get an answer pretty soon.
I would just like to add something really quickly. It is extremely easy to create testnets, or let's say local testnets. So like use that opportunity. You can like make lots of them, test everything before doing it on the testnet if you want. It's also super easy with Rust SDK to make unit tests and so on. You will find that also in the documentation, but if you have any questions, let us know. So it is extremely easy to play around. So if you have a contract with a method, you can test it like with 10 lines of code. And so
yeah,
so that you know that you do not have to do everything on the testnet, and you can do it like super easily. Run a local mode, run it for 5 seconds, do what you want, and then disregard it, and then run another one, and so on.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, I can maybe run you through a little example since Dan already showcased the TS SDK on.
Absolutely, that would be great.
I believe someone's writing something about the Rust SDK. Shell TL. Some things are very confusing when using the docs in the Fuel side.
Okay.
If it's related to the Rust SDK, maybe you can provide some answers.
Yes, everyone, please try and provide as specific questions as possible, because it will allow us to give you more direct and useful feedback. Also, it will be always great to give us a link to the source, the specific thing that is causing issues.
It says the method doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the method is. Okay, so what you mean is there is a section in the documentation where the code is not working.
Those of you watching the recording, because this event will be recorded, the question that was asked was, someone tried the section of configurables on the call to set configurables, and it says that the method doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the method is the one used in the documentation.
Okay,
So yeah.
we will check it. We will check it out. Normally, like all of the code snippets in the documentation are tested. So those snippets should come from tests, like actual unit tests in our SDK, but I will definitely have a look. Did you manage to get it working somehow, like when you did your changes, or you left it?
Yeah, that's what Khalid said. Given that it's the CIs ran on real actual examples, it's probably an issue with importing the right traits or
Could be.
traits.
The other way it makes. We will have a look definitely, like immediately after the meeting, just to make sure.
If you've included the prelude and it doesn't work, it's definitely an issue.
But maybe, I don't know, Ahmed, what you prepared to show, but maybe we could show these configurables. My configure, okay, new. Okay.
I don't know if that's going to be feasible, or maybe you guys can showcase that specific section and try and run code, maybe do it live, especially if it's a small code excerpt. And I don't know, I trust you in whether that's something that's feasible to showcase now or not.
Let's see what Ahmed decides, but normally it should be.
Pull up a quick example. Though it's going to be from the test harness of the Rust SDK, but it should.
Yeah, so let's just show one of our tests. Okay.
I'm sure it's similar for the Rust SDK as well, but I think videos aren't always a great port of call because our code base has changed so significantly over the last year, definitely even the last 8 months. So much has changed, so the docs are definitely the best place to go because you'll get all the right versions, functions, and things like that.
I think we have this is a unit test for us, or me, an E2E test. So maybe we can show this exact example from the documentation. But yeah, maybe if you do it in isolation, maybe he didn't import the right. He didn't maybe use the right report. So he said in the video they use, okay, could be that changed. Maybe if the video is older, could be that we remove new. Okay, let's see, like Ahmed, if you can share the screen, let's do this test. Or maybe like you can first do it, prepare everything, and then we can see. I imported everything. Okay, let's see. Let's do it live.
Okay, so this is the contract mentioned in the docs. What we have here is some enum with a generic type, struct with another generic type, and there's several configurable values in the contract itself. This one doesn't have the num variable, but I guess any of these will do. Okay, so there's just two methods, one that returns the configurables, and yeah, only one method. Okay, now I just gotta find the corresponding test for this. Let me just check if I can pull it from the docs.
Maybe search for the string configurables minus ABI and find that test where that is mentioned.
Okay, it's one of the tests that runs in this contract. It's going to use Abidjan first to just generate the type bindings. This is similar to the method that Dan presented, which just is going to launch a Fuel node and it's going to create a test wallet with some funds on it for you. There's also alternatives to this method, which let you define what kind of funds you want for what kind of wallet or predicate or whatever. But if you just need a single wallet for deploying, doing some transfers, which is the way to go, you can load a contract from the binary. You can then deploy it. We create an instance and we're going to return the configurables. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but In this case, we did not set the configurables. Let's see if we have another example where we set it.
Right.
Here is another one. Yeah, perfect. This one is good.
So pretty much the same setup. Again, launch provider and get wallet. This time we're doing it for a script, but
it should be the same. Yeah.
It's the same interface basically. We're going to create our struct, actually our string, then the struct, which we've seen earlier, now the enum. And for my script, which had the name is defined here in the Abidjan, there's going to be a auto-generated struct with my script, so what we chose, then configurables, then new, and then we can provide a encoder config. You can just go with default here, I think.
Yeah, I think yes.
Yeah, default will cover it just fine. And then for every configurable value that you have in your contract or script, there's going to be a create-in method, which is just with underscore and then the name of your variable.
That could be the biggest change that the user mentioned here, because he has seen set underscore number, but maybe we change it to with underscore the name. Yeah, it depends how old the video is. But yeah, this is now the new way how it should be done, or actually.
Yeah, videos, I would always trust the docs on the
yes.
rather than videos, because it gets automatically updated with new releases. So yeah, you would set every variable, and then you can just run with configurables. So instance with, you're going to take your script instance that you created earlier. You can add to it configurables that you just set up. To main for scripts, or if it's a contract, it's just going to be call here. Or well, the method name, then call. And yeah, the rest is just an assertion that it is indeed the same values as we've configured.
Yeah, I just saw now in the documentation, actually, it is using with also. So, as Ahmed said, always check the documentation, or actually the latest, like the documentation of the latest release, actually. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, Ahmed, I will do this while you maybe talk about something else in the. Can you please drop a link? Okay. Is it okay? So in the docs, like the link you sent us in, just if you scroll down, you're going to see an example. But I'm also going to send you like the test in our SDK if you want to see, just in case.
There's a good point there. It's the same with the TS SDK, that anything you look at in the docs won't just be as text. It's backed up as a unit test that we then go and put, that then forms part of the docs. So if you ever had any queries about anything you're reading, know that you can go find it in the code base.
So I'm going to send you a link where the test is located at in the Rust SDK from the latest release. So
2 days of struggling for Sheltier. So you guys are thinking about
please, we have a forum. So if you write in the forum, we are going to respond quite quickly. If it's an easier thing, you're going to get the response maybe in hours. If it's something that we have to check, and then if you find out it's an issue, then of course it's going to take some time until we figure out what's happening and so on. But something like this, it's going to take hours, and you're just going to get a response.
Yeah, that's a good note, by the way, for everyone. For those of you that are just using our own Discord, feel free to post there. We will make sure to forward all of your queries to the Fuel team. If you are already on their forum, make sure to post your questions there to get some ample support. What about your Discord? What is the best section on your Discord for queries such as this one?
I would not recommend the Discord. A forum is better. We get notifications.
It used to be office hours on the Discord, but it's been deprecated in favor of the forum. So the forum is well maintained. There's always someone watching. We're going to get notified if we don't see it ourselves.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And also because it's async, it's easier because on Discord somebody has to be online, and we are all around the world.
Yeah, makes sense. For those of you that are still active on our Discord, don't worry about it. Just let us know if you have an issue. We will make sure to contact you to get you in contact with the right people and get you the support you need, so that you don't get to struggle for 2 days and bang your head against the wall. Any other questions that anyone might have?
If there's any other specific questions, otherwise I can guide you through some other sections of code, how to set up some basic or more advanced functionalities with the Rust SDK. I'm sure Dan can do the same for the TS side.
I'm actually curious if people know what configurables are for and what they do. I would like to know. Maybe probably this user, yes, but I don't want to say his name, but I will butcher it definitely.
We also have a question, or Shelter has a question regarding modify instances in Sway and if there's a library about it.
Do you know what that is, Ahmed?
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't help with that either. That's more of a question for the Sway team as it stands.
Sway team, yeah.
I presume that's going to be a forum type of question. Then
definitely to the compiler team.
Absolutely. Right, Ahmed, maybe we can you can run us through something basic to begin with, and we have time for something more advanced when while we're waiting for more questions.
I'm not sure how familiar people are with predicates, what they are, how they can use them.
Let's run it with the assumption that they don't, so that people watching the recording can utilize the recording to its.
Okay. Let me pull up so just in general for the Rust SDK repo, if you go to either examples or E2E, you can find many of our tests which cover various use cases. So in case you're struggling with something specific, say contract calls, predicates, scripts, some of our types, you can probably find some examples here of us using that in a way that might be helpful for you. So moving on into predicates, let's see, basic predicate. All right, this is not where the test is. This is just the predicate itself. Basic predicate. Right, transfer coins and messages to a predicate. Spend predicate coins, messages, basic, pay with right, pay with predicate might be a good one. So just a quick primer, what are predicates? You can think of it as the pay to script hash in Bitcoin. So the owner of some coin is going to be the hash of some code or some script in Bitcoin, which either resolves to true or false, so returns true or false. And the coins are going to unlock if you provide the data for that hash, which is going to make it resolve to true. If we look at the basic predicate example, I think Dan mentioned something similar. It's just a simple predicate implemented in Sway, which takes two parameters, and if they're equal, it's going to return true. So you can, for any funds, say that they're going to unlock with some programmable condition. And the benefit which you don't have in Bitcoin is that Sway is much more expressive than the Bitcoin script language. So for Dan's example, I think he had a predicate that unlocks in some pin code. For just a basic setup on our end, we're going to consider this predicate which unlocks if you just give it the two same parameters. But really, it could be anything that you can express with Sway. Where is my previous example? Basic predicate. It was the pay with predicate example, right? Yep, there we go. How you would set up something like this is you would first averagize your contract if you have a contract that you want to test calls against, and also averagize your predicate. This means that all the types used inside your contract or inside your predicate are going to be made available for you to use in the corresponding Rust bindings. For your predicate with the name that you provided here, you're going to get a myPredicate encoder, which is just encoder for your data. You can then encode some data in it like we did here. This is a different predicate than I had earlier, but anyways, this is just a predicate that exempts a U64. So for the predicate itself, you're going to need to load the code from the binary into a predicate struct. Now, in this case, we do something different than what you saw earlier, which was launch provider and set up wallet, I believe. Here we're doing a more custom test because I want to fine tune how many coins is owned by this predicate or some wallet. So I'm going to determine some amount of coins, some amount of messages, which are just the type of coin, and the actual amount per coin or per message. Now I can run set up predicate test, which underneath is just a helper. You can disregard all of this. The important one is setup test provider that you're going to use. So you're going to give it your coins, potentially your messages, which you defined earlier. And I reckon it's unlikely that you're going to use any like special node config or chain config parameters. These just determine like pricing, how large the largest transactions can be and stuff like that. But if you just go with the defaults, I think you're going to be fine. And you're going to get a provider back. So moving back to the example, you're going to get your provider back. And important for a predicate that you're going to use like a account is that you also set the provider. So similarly as you would do in ethers for wallets or middlewares or stuff like that. Yeah, so what we can do now is load the contract, just use some defaults, deploy it, and we can deploy it with the predicate. So the interface for deploy, transfer, and other similar functions like contract calls accepts an account here. An account can be a normal wallet, which you've initiated with a private key, or it can be a predicate. So no matter what you provided here, it's just going to treat it as this account abstractions, which means, oh, this thing owns some amount of coins, and I can use it to pay for whatever I do. And now we're going to, once the contract is deployed, we can set up an instance. Again, we're going to set the instance up with the predicate because we want to use the predicate for paying any contract calls. The policies, you can probably get away with defaults if you're using the default node setup structs. And yeah, we just do a little assertion here to check if the asset balance checks out to what we expect it to be. Now for contract methods, we can call our contract. Internally, it's going to use the predicate this time to pay for all the amounts. So it's going to do all kinds of setup, which might be a bit involved if you're trying to do custom transactions with predicates. But yeah, this will abstract everything. It's going to apply the TX policies earlier and do the call. And then we just do an assertion here to check that the balance has indeed been deducted. So that's just a general overview of how you can use predicates. Important for you is that wallets unlock with the private key. Predicate-owned assets unlock with the right predicate data. And from the perspective of the Rust SDK, the interface for general stuff is pretty agnostic as to whether you do use a predicate or a wallet. Any questions regarding that?
I don't think I'm seeing many questions, but we still have 15 minutes, so maybe we can go through a more advanced example for those that are more deeper into the matter. Or I don't know, maybe that's going to be by you, or maybe something that Dan can showcase.
Unless there's Dan?
Happy for you to showcase the more advanced example. So too.
Happy for me to showcase it?
If you're there and set up, you go for it.
Yeah, I can take a random, more involved example. But the thing is, unless anyone voices any specific interests, it's just going to be a shot in the dark on my side. But yeah.
Well, it might be, I mean, from your expertise, something that can be more universal and something that it's quite sure that people will end up encountering in a way, or something that will be useful for them as they get to move into the coding part of the hackathon, which is going to be starting from next week. So, yeah.
Maybe we can look at something from the cookbook, which is a separate section in the docs, which just provides some more involved examples.
Sounds good.
Yeah. One example we provide is the liquidity example. So the assumption here is that you have some kind of liquidity pool contract, which we can look at here in a second. So on a very basic level, the liquidity pool contract provides a deposit method and a withdrawal method. Depositing means you're going to deposit some amount of the base token, which in this case is hard-coded, but doesn't really matter that much. From the contract perspective, it just checks if it's the right message, if the asset ID is correct, and if the amount is greater than 0. In response, it's going to mint some amount of the liquidity pool token, and it's going to mint it to the address of the caller of deposit. And withdraw does basically the inverse. You're going to provide some amount of the liquidity pool token, and it's going to transfer back the base token to your address. So for us to set up a test that will cover this example, what we need to do. So first, as always, we just Abidjanize the contract. Then we will hard code some asset ID for the base asset ID. Right now we want to, okay, yeah, so this is the other method that I've been talking about, which is launch, custom provider, and get wallets. This one lets you customize how many wallets do you want to have, with what kind of coins, what kinds of assets. So if you're testing different kinds of assets, this one comes in really handy. So for example, we have some random asset ID in this case that we want to test transfers with. So we would need wallets with this asset ID. What we can do is use some of the 0 asset ID, because it's usually what the default setting is, that this is the network space asset, which we use for transfer fees. And we're going to set up a asset config for each of those asset IDs, which just includes the ID, the number of coins we want per asset, and the amount per coin. And then for a wallet config, we're going to construct how many wallets we want and what kind of assets they should hold. And then finally, we can provide this wallet config to launch custom provider. These ones are, again, the node parameters and the chain parameters, which we can just go with none for convenient defaults. And we're going to just get one wallet from this, since that's what we configured. Next, just a basic deploy as seen earlier. We're going to load the contract from the binary, use some defaults for the load configuration. The load configuration lets you set up configurables, salt if you're deploying the same contract multiple times, and storage configurations. And yeah, we're just going to deploy. Next step would be to get a handle for the contract methods to perform our calls. And now we determine some deposit amount, let's say 1 million of the base asset. We can create some call parameters. So in this case, the contract method that we're calling is a payable method. That means it can receive some amount of any asset. And to transfer that amount to the contract method, we need call parameters. We're going to specify the amount, and we're going to specify the asset ID that we want to transfer. Internally, the Rust SDK is going to adjust the transaction inputs to provide these assets, assuming that the account that you're using actually has this amount. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. And we can go to our contract methods, call the deposit method with our wallet that we've previously configured to hold the right assets. We're going to provide the call parameters that we've specified here, which tell the deposit method, or which actually wire the assets to the deposit method. And we're going to apply a variable output policy, which just means that for the deposit method, it's going to output some assets to our address, which means that the transaction is going to have some variable outputs for that asset ID. So since it's a contract method, we cannot, you never know, is it going to provide multiple outputs? Is it going to be one, multiple, several, whatever? So Fuel has this concept of variable outputs, which have malleable fields for the actual amount that's being output by the transaction. It's going to get filled by the VM during execution. Our responsibility as the developer is to know that our method might output a asset ID, but we're not sure what the amount is. So we're just going to add a variable output to the transaction. The SDK makes this a bit easier by providing you with the output policy, which just says you can either use the exact amount. So I know my method is going to just output a single asset, in our case, the liquidity token, and we can use exactly one, or we can just let the Rust SDK estimate whatever amount is needed here and ignore this completely. I'm not sure entirely. I think if you completely remove this, it's always going to attempt to estimate. So maybe you don't even have to worry about this at all. But yeah. We do our call next. And contract asset liquidity. Right. So deposit, what happened on the contract side is we locked some liquidity into the contract, and it gave us back the liquidity token. The expectation now is that we can get that deposit back if we provide the liquidity token to the withdrawal method. So we're going to attempt to check our balance of the liquidity pool asset ID, so the liquidity pool token. We're going to take that whole balance and use it as the amount for the call parameters that we're going to provide to the withdrawal method. Same as for the asset ID. So the asset ID of a token minted by the contract is always going to correspond to the contract ID. And there's also sub-IDs if your contract has to mint multiple different tokens, but do not go too much into that. If you're just minting a single token, the asset ID is really going to correspond to the contract ID, given the 0 sub ID. So we just pull those infos so that we can construct the call parameters, and now we're going to call the withdraw method, again with the same wallet, or the target wallet, which, provide the call parameters. Again, use the variable output policy, because this time there's going to be a variable output for the token that we provided as liquidity. And we're going to call the method, and we can just check if our balances match before and after the call. What I would do now real quick is run this example and check if we do the estimation for the variable output policy automatically. But yeah, that would be the more involved example for something like a liquidity pool contract. If there's any questions, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing to add, I already shared the link to the documentation about the deposit and withdrawal from the cookbook. For those of you that are following live, this is where you can see what Ahmed's been talking about, highlighting. You can play around with that on your own. Also, you can generally just look into the documentation about the cookbook itself, which is full of all kinds of interesting examples that you can play around with and make the most as you get to hack for your projects. I don't think we have any more questions, so I'm happy to stop here as we are running out of time and we don't really have the time to go into more specific things. Again, the link to the sponsor section, a link to the resource section within our hacker pack can be found here. I'm showing the link in the chat section. This is where you were able to find a lot of useful links, not only for documentation, but also everything Fuel related. And last but not least, if you want to play around with some of the examples that have been shown during the workshop, I'm showing the link as well. Please make sure to navigate to the cookbook for some nice examples. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dan, for the presentation. Thank you, Ahmed, for showcasing everything. And Ahmed, you want to have a question? Or
yeah, quick note from my side. As you just saw the test field, it's a common issue that we get is that the version of the SDK is mismatched with the core version. So if you get any issues like that, the error messages should be somewhat comprehensive. And you can always either ask us for what the correct versions are, or you can look into GitHub and see what's the matching version for your version. Yeah, advice is just make sure that the Fuel core version that you're running is up to date and the SDK versions are up to date, and it should be all fine. Yeah.
I can also see there's a last-minute question coming in from Sheltia, so I'm going to wait to see the question before we conclude. And again, I'm going to use the time in the meantime to once again tell all of you that are still here. This Sunday, we will be expecting you all to fill out the idea submission form. Link has been shared on Discord in the announcement channel. We will also make sure to remind you about this before the end of the week. Please make sure to give us as many details as you can on what you're planning to build, the stage of which your current work is at, and we will be able to connect with the right people to give you the right type of support. And hopefully you get to submit something nice and compete for some of the great prizes that we have for the hackathon. Questions still coming in. Last words from you guys. Any motivational words, things you would like to motivate our hackers as they enter into the hacking stage of this hackathon?
I would just say
experience, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, good luck. I just stress, if you want quick prototyping, CreateFuels is the quickest way to build and deploy for us. And if you want to extend it, go through the cookbook. And you don't have to worry about any of the setup. You can get making your app a lot quicker.
Lovely. The question's still coming in.
Let's wait.
We'll give it a bit more. We don't want to leave you in trouble for the next few days.
It's going to be a tough one. If it's
Concerning the hackathon, in the submission side, it states that the front end is optional. I don't have any front end ability, so can I just submit the project via Git and the test to prove my project works, and is it worth investing in? It's definitely worth working on your project, even if you don't have a front end ready. Again, you are capable of just, one of the other things to note is that as you do the submission, in the end, you will be required to submit a video. That video can be just you, yourself, running us through what you've done and showcasing how everything works. You don't have to work on the front end, especially because different people have different skills. Work to the best that you can. And once you do the submission, you will be able to submit a 3-minute video as well. This is not to be confused with pitches and so on, which come for the finale. This is just a quick overview that will showcase us and everyone on the field team that will be making the evaluations of everyone's projects, what you've managed to achieve, what you've built, how you've built it, what you've used, what was the test stack that you've been using, and how have you achieved the things that you've managed to code through. So again, not a problem. Don't worry about front ends. As long as the project's working, we should be fine. Thank you guys, especially the Rust guy.
No problem.
good luck.
My advice would be like use a forum, and if you have somebody live, bombard them with questions. Use the opportunity, and yeah, that's it. Like you use the docs. If it's not in the docs, there is a chance we have a test for it in the SDK, Rust SDK, also the TS SDK. Doesn't matter. So we try to test everything. So any functionality that you maybe encounter or you want to do, we have some test. Maybe not comprehensive as you need it, but generally, like we tested it. So that's it.
Amazing. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Khalil, for being here. It was really great to have you. Thank you, Shoutil, for giving us feeding us questions from the audience. I hope everybody else enjoyed them as well. For those watching the recording, I hope everything that Ahmed managed to showcase will be of use. Don't forget to use the documentation. And if you have any questions, do make sure to ping everyone on the Fuel forum or post in our Discord, and we'll make sure to do that on your behalf. Thank you all for being here. Hope you're having a great day, and see you all soon.
Thank you.